Alright, I hate how Fox broadcasts baseball, and let me show you why. Alright, so it's Game 7 of the World Series, bottom of the 9th inning. The bases are loaded with only one man out, and we get all these close-up shots. Some are of players and some are of fans. So what's missing here? Well, how about, like how was the infield positioned, or a shot of what the runners on base are doing? But, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here. So I want to take a look today at the philosophy of televising baseball games and how that's changed over the years. And you tell me whether you think things have improved over time or gotten worse. Now, if you go way back to the 1950s, you'll notice that the broadcasts weren't great.
Outside, ball 1-2.
It's not just the broadcast quality or the poor frame rate and resolution of the kinescope recordings either.
Slow roller, Robinson charges it, bare hands it, throws, and it is in time on a beautiful play.
The few 1950s baseball broadcasts that survive all suffer from similar issues.
Strike three. Snyder goes down swinging.
The camera angle behind home plate makes it very difficult to see what is happening.
In there, strike two, 1-2.
The insistence on showing the action close up makes it hard to see the bigger picture. And of course, there was no instant replay at all. You either saw it or you missed it.
And Hank drops it. And Coyle goes on to second. The ball gets by.
Well, after watching those clips, I bet you'll have a hard time understanding all the hype around the sport on television at the time. There was this major concern in the late 1940s and throughout the 1950s that television would completely displace fans. In other words, the fans would not want to go to the ballpark anymore. Instead, they would just want to sit around at home and watch that on TV. Now, nobody at the time ever mentioned the fact that you literally couldn't follow the action on your television screen. Anyway, in the mid-1950s, NBC hired this man, Harry Coyle, who wound up revolutionizing the sport on television. Coyle led NBC through the era of increased camera angles, instant replays, and a growing demand for baseball as a television sport. However, things were not incredible right away. Take this play from Game 3 of the 1965 World Series, for example. After this walk to Harmon Killebrew, the Twins have runners on first and third with two men out in the top of the first. Hitter Earl Batty works the count to 2-0, and then the Twins decide to put on a creative play. Killebrew breaks for second base and then stops halfway trying to draw a throw. And when he does draw the throw, Zolio Versalles on third tries to steal home. In the end, Versalles is caught in a rundown, ending the inning. Now, the problem with the way that was broadcast is that you literally couldn't see anything at all. I mean, let's take a closer look. It's obvious that Coyle was caught by surprise, although this camera angle at least allows him to show all of the action at once if he zooms out. But instead, he zooms in on where the ball is going. Now, we haven't seen at all where the runner on third base is, and by the time we finally do see him, he's a dead duck. But there is another interesting thing here. Some of the pitches in that at-bat were shown from the center field camera angle, which was Harry Coyle's most infamous innovation. But others were shown from this elevated press box view. Yeah, so it really wasn't until the Fox era that we've seen this insistence on using the center field camera angle over any view of the action for every single pitch. It kind of makes sense. I mean, when you use the center field angle, you can follow how the pitch goes, you can see its trajectory, you can guess how fast it was. It's better than any other angle for that. But there are times where the center field camera angle is actually inappropriate for the action. This is from Game 3 of the 1985 NLCS with Vince Coleman on at first base. And as you can see here, Coyle elected to focus only on the first base bag, basically ignoring Willie McGee, who was at the plate. Dodger pitcher Bob Welch was also ignoring McGee, but Coleman stole second anyway. And then a few minutes later, when it was obvious that McGee was going to bunt, Coyle elected to use this overhead shot to show us the full defense. Later on in that inning, with Tom Herr at the plate, Coyle had the center field camera zoom out so we could see what was happening with the base runner. And I mean, I could go on. Games like this are fascinating and it really gives you a different perspective on the sport. Now, if you're as interested as I am in watching old games like this one or other ones, check out my Patreon. The link's in the description. You can find all sorts of these old games in their entirety on there, easy and ready for you to download. Now, the best thing about Harry Coyle's approach is that he could sense what was about to happen before it happened. This is largely because of his long experience with the sport. Of course, part of what made baseball fascinating in the mid-1980s was the emphasis on speed. But another big part of why it was so fascinating and so much fun to watch is because of how the sport was broadcast. ABC used the same philosophy at that time, including things like this split-screen view to show us Lonnie Smith's lead before he was thrown out stealing second. ABC was kind of caught by surprise here when Jack Clark forgot to cover first base on this infield bouncer by Buddy Biancalana. And here it's obvious that pitcher Brett Saberhagen is going to bunt, and so you see this view of the entire infield instead of the center field camera perspective. Now this time the Cardinals do make the play, though you still have to cringe when you watch Clark leave first base to try to field the bunt. So as you can see here, these clips provide a lot of drama and really awaken a lot of interest in you naturally without the need to show constant close-ups of player faces and fan faces and the like. And the more old games that you watch, the more that you start noticing things like this. Marquise Grissom steals second base here in the 1995 World Series, though I honestly miss the old split-screen view. But ABC then went to this overhead shot in anticipation of a bunt and has a beautiful angle on a pickoff play at second base. Notice that ABC then goes back to this view instead of insisting on the center field camera perspective. It's likely because this view fits the play best. Now, there was an art to doing this, and it was one that one of the best in the history of the industry developed over time. And the drama in those old broadcasts comes from the game situations. It comes from the game itself. It's not manufactured. So when Ed Armbruster comes to the plate in the bottom of the 10th inning with a runner on at first, we don't even need to see his face. The moment itself creates the tension and the drama. They give us a brief shot of the third baseman just to show where he was playing. And since it was clearly going to be a bunt, we got this shot behind the plate for a second. Now the famous bunt itself happens here with the center field camera angle, but notice that Coyle decided to stick with this perspective instead of moving to a different angle after the bunt. That gives us the perfect view of the controversy. Now Fox, of course, has been doing the broadcast of baseball for just about 30 years now, and it doesn't show any signs of stopping anytime soon. But there are trends in the Fox broadcast that have remained constant for 30 years and that have always driven me nuts. So here the White Sox have a runner on second base while down by 2 runs. Fox gives us nothing but close-ups of everything in its signature style of milking the drama for all it's worth. The most ridiculous part is this, where the camera keeps zooming in on Andy Pettitte as if his nose were the key to all the action. They do handle the play itself pretty well, but we have no idea where the fielders were stationed.
Talk about being a savvy veteran in the postseason. He ends up getting...
And that philosophy has been the hallmark of Fox's broadcast of baseball for decades. It's always been about getting that perfect Hollywood shot. It's never really been about trying to understand the sport or taking the beauty of the sport and showing it to the fans or explaining anything to the fans about how the sport actually works. Fox did a little bit better in the 2015 World Series, staying away from the close-ups. But notice that there's no shot to tell the viewer how the defense is playing. And instead you get a bunch of worthless gimmick camera angles like this one. And that's my point. The sport doesn't really need to rely on gimmicks like a base camera or an umpire camera or whatever. All the fans want to see is how the fielders are aligned and what the base runners are doing. Fox did give us a brief look at the infield at the beginning of the at-bat, but didn't show it for long. In fact, in the play itself, we don't even see the runner on third base until he's almost reached the plate, despite the fact that he is the entire story here. This replay angle was the best angle of the entire play, but of course we only saw it as a replay, not as part of the actual broadcast. Jeff Passan of ESPN shared this angle on Twitter, showing that the Blue Jays third base coach drew a line in the dirt with his foot, telling the runner to take a shorter lead than usual at third. Passan talks in his tweet about how this is one of the nuances of baseball that usually goes unseen. And Passan is right that this usually goes unseen, but he doesn't talk about why. The reason why this stuff goes unseen is because the people who are running these broadcasts at Fox don't understand how the sport actually works. It's because their director loves to have these stupid close-ups and ridiculous in-game interviews. Now, I'm not saying that NBC in the 1980s necessarily would have caught that shot of the third base coach drawing the line in the sand, but my point is that the sport in and of itself has more than enough drama as it is. There's no need for the close-ups, there's no need for these stupid interviews, and there's no need for manufacturing extra drama. It's already part of the sport.